Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking the absolutely stunning September 2024 bankruptcy of a true household staple, Tupperware. I mean, if you go open your kitchen cabinets right now, there's a really good chance you've got a food storage container sitting right there, right? But the crazy thing is, the company that basically invented that entire category is literally fighting for its survival right now.
When the bankruptcy news officially dropped, well, the media definitely had a field day with the clever headlines. Things like lifting the lid on their financial problems or declaring that the party's over. But jokes aside, the harsh reality of this decline is a fascinating and honestly pretty sobering case study. It shows exactly what happens when a legendary brand completely fails to adapt to the modern world.
So the absolute kicker here is their massive debt. When they filed for bankruptcy, they cited over $1 billion in liabilities, but they only had about $680 million in assets. To put that into perspective, that is a catastrophic financial mismatch. For a company whose stock used to sit comfortably at $95 a share, tumbling down to $1 billion in the hole, yeah, that requires decades of serious missteps.
So here's how we're going to break down this incredible rise and fall today. 1. A revolutionary post-war rise. 2. Falling behind in retail. 3. The rise of rivals. 4. Mergers and macro pressures. And finally, 5. An outdated legacy. Let's jump right in.
Kicking things off with Section 1, a revolutionary post-war rise, a revolutionary start.
Looking back, it's almost hard to wrap your head around just how cutting-edge this company was when it first hit the scene. Back then, typical plastics were, well, they were black, brittle, and frankly, they smelled pretty awful. But what founder Earl Tupper brought to the table was a total game changer. His new plastic was crystal clear, super durable, and totally odorless. And the best part? He engineered this patented airtight seal that was actually inspired by the lids on paint cans. I mean, it completely revolutionized how we keep food fresh.
It's a pretty wild journey, too. Tupper originally pivoted his plastics company from making World War II gas mask parts straight into consumer goods. But they hit a snag. Consumers were actually kind of intimidated by this new plastic technology. They literally didn't know how to burp that innovative seal. Well, enter a brilliant VP of marketing named Brownie Wise. She saw the post-war baby boom, saw the big shift to the suburbs, and she popularized the iconic Tupperware parties. It was this ingenious way for independent female consultants to demo the product right inside suburban homes, turning what was basically a confusing piece of plastic into an absolute must-have item.
Before we go any further, we really need to remember one key thing. Tupperware is an actual specific brand named directly after Earl Tupper. It's not just some generic catch-all word for any random plastic box you toss in your fridge, even though we use it that way today. Back in the day, that name stood for a very specific premium standard of quality. Moving on to Section 2, falling behind in retail, ignoring the market.
So despite all that massive early success, the company made a truly fatal error. They stubbornly clung to their direct-to-consumer party model and completely ignored how the rest of the world actually wanted to shop. Get this, in the 1950s, right when the parties were taking off, they actually pulled their products out of retail stores completely. Then, as the internet blew up in the 90s, they literally banned their independent consultants from selling online, claiming in-person was better. Waiting until 2022 to finally start selling in Target or on Amazon, and 2024 to enter Macy's? I mean, that was just way too little, way too late.
Honestly, the sheer stubbornness here is staggering. Even today, a shockingly low 13% of their products are actually available to purchase directly on their own website. 13%! In our modern era of one-click shopping, making your product genuinely difficult to buy is basically a guaranteed recipe for disaster.
That brings us to Section 3, the rise of rivals, splitting the market.
While Tupperware was busy ignoring the internet and avoiding retail shelves, they were getting absolutely swamped by competitors who were aggressively carving up the market. First, in the 1980s, Rubbermaid rolled out highly comparable, durable products. But the knockout punch really came in the 90s. Consumer habits completely flipped. We stopped treating containers like these durable family heirlooms you had to meticulously wash and return after a dinner party. Instead, people wanted the cheap, guilt-free convenience of just throwing away Gladware or Ziploc. And because of this massive wave of competitors, the Tupperware name just became totally genericized. If you search for them online today, you're mostly just going to get a dozen other, much cheaper brands.
There's a fascinating quote that perfectly captures this mindset.
When asked in the early 2000s about making disposable products to compete, their former CEO used this pen analogy to justify staying premium. He argued that people want to keep track of their good containers just like a nice pen. But looking back at it now, you almost have to laugh at how out of touch that was with modern consumer habits. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't a laugh, it was a massive missed opportunity. Sometimes, we all just want a cheap container we don't have to stress about losing, right?
Let's look at Section 4, Mergers and Macro Pressures. Corporate Chaos.
Beyond the physical product itself, massive corporate distractions started completely tearing at the seams of the business. Their corporate history is, well, it's incredibly chaotic. Way back in 1958, Earl Tupper inexplicably fired his marketing genius, Brownie Wise, and just sold the whole company for $16 million. From there, instead of relentlessly innovating their core food storage business, the brand bounced between massive corporate mergers, like joining Kraft in 1980, before being spun off again. Then in 2005, they made the wild decision to spend $560 million acquiring completely unrelated beauty brands from Sara Lee. The whole shebang severely distracted them from their actual primary mission in the kitchen.
Now, you add in recent macroeconomic pressures, and you've got a perfect storm. High inflation seriously tightened everyone's wallets. Then the pandemic locked down the world, which dealt a huge blow to those in-person get-togethers they were still stubbornly relying on. Meanwhile, the actual cost of the plastic resin materials skyrocketed, right alongside growing global environmental concerns over plastic usage in general. All of these things just combined to absolutely devastate a company that was already struggling heavily long before the pandemic even hit.
And finally, Section 5, an outdated legacy, afraid to change. Look, everything about Tupperware, the product, the iconic parties, the brand itself, it all used to be at the absolute bleeding edge of American innovation. But ultimately, they failed because they believed so deeply in their historic 1950s success that they were literally terrified to change the formula. This flat-out refusal to react to cultural shifts, aggressive competition, and modern retail preferences resulted in their stock value just evaporating. I mean, dropping from those high-flying $95 days all the way down to mere pennies before their 2024 bankruptcy filing. It is wild.
So as they currently seek court approval to sell off the company in hopes of preserving whatever is left of the business, I want to leave you with this thought. Be honest, did you even realize Tupperware was a distinct brand name before today? And has this once iconic name completely lost its meaning in your own kitchen? Thanks for walking through this explainer with me. It serves as a pretty powerful reminder that in business, if you aren't adapting, you're disappearing.